first thing I noticed about the house wasn't the heat, or the narrow hallways, or the way the nights felt longer than they should have. It was the clock. It never showed the same time as anything else in the house. And somehow, it always seemed to know when I was looking at it. My name is Fletcher Morland. I grew up in a low brick house on a quiet street outside Perth, Australia, and for a long time, I believed that house was simply difficult to live in. I was 10 when my parents bought the place. It wasn't old by any dramatic standard, built sometime in the 70s, but it had the kind of layout that suggested decisions made without much planning. Narrow hallways, doors that opened too close to corners, a second living room at the back that no one seemed to know what to do with. That back room became mine. At first, I loved it. It was away from my parents' bedroom, away from the television noise, away from the rest of the house. I could shut the door and feel like I had my own world. The room smelled faintly of warm dust and old curtains. There was a window facing the yard, but the glass was cloudy, and the light that came through always looked filtered, like it had passed through something first. Life settled into a routine. School, homework, evenings eaten slowly because of the heat. The house was quiet most of the time. My parents both worked long hours, and I learned to entertain myself. The first thing that stood out to me was the clock. It was mounted on the wall just outside my bedroom door, an old analog thing with a yellowed face and a second hand that ticked louder than it should have. I asked Mum why it was there. "It came with the house," she said. "We just never moved it." I noticed early on that it never matched the time on the microwave or the television. It was always a few minutes off, not consistently fast or slow, just different. Sometimes when I came home from school, it would be ahead by 10 minutes. Other days, behind by 5. My parents said clocks did that. I accepted it. What I didn't accept was how often I caught myself standing in the hallway, staring at it, unable to remember why I'd come out of my room. The house had sounds like all houses do. Pipes knocking, floorboards shifting. But there was one sound I only heard at night, usually when everything else had settled. Footsteps. They weren't heavy, they weren't fast. Just a slow, deliberate step, then another, moving through the hallway outside my door. They never reached the end of the hall. They never approached my room. They simply passed, paused, and faded. I told myself it was my parents checking on me, except I never heard their bedroom door open. And when I asked Mum one morning if she'd been up late, she looked genuinely confused. I started keeping my door open at night so I could see the hallway. The clock glowed faintly in the dark, its hands moving steadily. The footsteps continued, but I never saw anyone make them. Sometimes I woke up feeling like I'd missed something important, like a conversation had happened while I slept. The back room had no air conditioning, so I often lay awake listening to the house breathe. On more than one occasion, I noticed the clock had stopped completely, the second hand frozen in place. When I checked it in the morning, it was ticking again. Things escalated slowly, in ways that were easy to dismiss. My school bag would be by the front door when I was sure I'd left it in my room. The back door would be unlocked when everyone swore they'd locked it. The clock would show a time that didn't make sense, like it had skipped forward or back without explanation. The worst part was how normal it all felt while it was happening. One evening, during a power outage, the house fell into a deeper silence than usual. No hum of appliances, no distant traffic noise, just the three of us sitting in the living room, sweating in the dark. That's when I heard the footsteps again, clearer this time, slower. I looked at my parents. Neither of them reacted. "Did you hear that?" I asked. "Hear what?" Dad replied. The footsteps stopped. The clock, visible even in the dark, was ticking. That night, I dreamed I was standing in the hallway, staring at the clock while someone stood behind me. I couldn't turn around. I could feel their presence in the air, close enough that if I leaned back, I'd touch them. In the dream, the clock spoke. Not out loud, not with words. Just a pressure in my head, counting something down. I woke up before it finished. After that, I began to notice how the house seemed to anticipate me. Lights flicking on just as I entered rooms. Doors already ajar when I reached for them. The clock always ticking a little louder when I walked past. One afternoon, I came home early and found my bedroom door closed. That alone wasn't strange. What was strange was the feeling I had before I opened it. A certainty that something on the other side was arranged differently. The room looked the same: bed, desk, curtains. But the air felt used, like someone had been there for a long time and only just left. That night, I stayed awake, staring into the hallway. At exactly 3:41 a.m., the footsteps began. They moved slower than ever before. Step, pause, step, pause. They stopped directly outside my door. I held my breath. Nothing happened. No handle turning, no knock, just presence. A sense of attention focused entirely on me. The clock ticked. Then very carefully the footsteps retreated. The next morning the clock was missing. Not broken, not fallen. Gone. My parents swore they hadn't moved it. Dad laughed it off, said maybe it had finally stopped working, and they'd taken it down without thinking. But there was a clean outline on the wall where it had been. Dust-free, like it had been removed recently. After that, the house felt empty, in a way that made me uneasy. The footsteps stopped. The strange timing issues faded. Life returned to something like normal. We moved 2 years later. New job, new suburb. I didn't miss the old place. I grew up, left home, forgot most of it, until last year. My parents decided to downsize and sold the house. While helping them pack, I found the clock wrapped in newspaper at the bottom of a box. Mum frowned when I showed it to her. "That's not ours," she said. The clock wasn't ticking. I asked where it came from. "No idea," Dad said. "Probably left behind." That night, staying in my childhood room one last time, I woke up to a familiar sound. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving through a hallway that no longer had a clock to measure them. I didn't get out of bed, but I counted anyway. Not because I wanted to, because something else was.